The Real Angler Podcast with Community Kevin Brannon is brought to you by Daiwa. If you want innovation and quality in your fishing products, Daiwa has what you need. Costa Sunglasses. Discover life's greatest adventures with Costa. Built to look good and be tough. Promar and Ahi USA. Premium fishing products and accessories with concepts developed by passionate anglers. Channel Islands Sport Fishing. Offering deep sea fishing on quality sport fishing charter boats. And more. Mossy Oak. From hot days in the water to sweltering afternoons in the woods, we've got you covered. Outfit your obsession. The Latino Business Expo, Ventura County's largest networking event. Special thanks to Bruce at Kirby Subaru in Ventura. It's the Real Angler Show, live here on Rough Edge FM. And now, here's your host, Kevin Brannon. It's the Real Angler Podcast, and Barry and I are here to introduce today's guest. That is Lola Cruz. She has written a book called, tell us what the name of your book is, please.
Lupita's Treasure.
Lupita's Treasure. So she's going to talk about that. And you know this guy, it's Kevin Brannon, the Real Angler, Community Kevin.
Heroic Kev.
Heroic Kev, sorry.
Yeah, that's the name that's going by this couple of days as Port Hueneme Hero of the Year. And I should have used that time to announce when I was on the microphone my candidacy for 2028 Harbor Commissioner is going to be my next adventure. So if you hear the slogan, vote the fish for commish, then you know that
Love that.
That's going for it. And the reason I'm going to get into politics a little bit before we get into this, just to jump it out there, is that being in fisheries management as well versus local politics like a city council member, is that, you know, there's a lot of maritime work that we do, and I think being part of the harbor commissioner and working on the coast when we start going into this green economy and blue economy and stuff, that I would like to have our voice in there from the fisherman standpoint, and also people that utilize the ocean ways in our backyard. So
that makes sense.
So city council. Plus, I feel like I'm, you know, pretty big in the city of Port Hueneme now anyway, as a servant, public servant with the Reguppy Outdoors. So, you know, step up and get a little bit higher, and then by then I'll almost be 50, so that's about right. Anyway, good morning. So are we going to go by your publisher name, right? We don't want to give out your what do they say nowadays, your governmental name? We're going to just
name.
Yeah. Is that what it is, a pen name?
Pen name. But actually, Lola is a nickname for my real name. I'll say my real name is Dolores. Dolores, it's Spanish. But I've always been called Lola. And only when I was in trouble, my dad would say, Dolores, and I'd be, oh no.
Oh, snap. You would hear the belt after that.
So,
how would you get in trouble? Why would you get in trouble?
Oh, you know, I was a pretty good kid, but I had my moments.
Yeah.
One of 4 kids. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And that's good. See, that's why it's called kids. The reason I say that as we get into this, and that's why I was kind of joking with you about your notes, is because we kind of scramble our interview, you know, before we get to the topic or how we deviate, is you work with kids, you're an educator, right? You're a teacher, and I work with kids, right? So
Absolutely.
When they say these kids today, if you use the word kid and you remember when you were a kid, or what your kids are supposed to do, childlike behavior, why are they so shocked that kids are doing that? Or kids need to work. Do you believe kids need to work, or is a kid, it should be a kid and not being able to, because you get to be an adult the rest of your life, right? So why are we in such a hurry to make a kid a worker?
Have them grow up so quick.
Right.
Exactly.
Because I'm on the forefront of these kids today, or this generation, or how people always comparing generations, right?
Exactly.
And I'm kind of against that, because I think every generation we do evolve, and that we do things different, and that I never want to. You ever seen that movie Peter Pan, where he's like, Peter, there you are, because he grew up, you know, and he's like, he forgot how to be a kid inside.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
So that's it. Just wanted to, you know, bring that up, because again, you are and give us a little bit of your background and your education as well.
Absolutely. But before I do that, I just want to congratulate you again for that wonderful award you received, recipient of Hero of the Year 2024 for Port Hueneme. And I got a chance to be there, and it was really lovely. And I walked out of there that day just feeling so uplifted and so happy, because, you know, so often we're listening to the news, we're hearing about all that's going on in the world that's terrible. And sure, there are things happening, there are issues, but we also need to acknowledge all the great things that are happening. And as an educator, I love it because so often my students would always be recognizing the sports hero, the the hero from some action movie that was out. And it's important that they realize that we have heroes in our own community. And Kevin Brannon is one such hero. He's right here in our community. The contributions he's made are phenomenal. And I think it's important that we all understand that, and kids get that there's heroes in their family, there's heroes, all around them, and they need them. We need them. We need to see that there are people that we can go to, people that we can look up to, people who are doing the kinds of things that we want to do. So anyways, Kevin, I just wanted to say congratulations to you, and we have heroes everywhere.
Well, thanks appreciate you saying that and for showing up to our event to share that time with us. But I think, again, me being a filmmaker, the first thing you said was on the news. Turn it off. Make the news, right? Mm-hmm. Propaganda and the way that we celebrate athletes and who's celebrated is part of the agenda, right? So, again, there have been heroes, right? And there are, but that's when I started getting into film, the term that I learned is if it leads, it bleeds. People have been looking at clickbait that we call right now since they would put up an imagery up on television. Mm-hmm. Today there was this, right? Before you had social media, you were just watching the 10 o'clock news, right? And they would automatically jump in with some type of chaos to get people to watch the show.
Absolutely.
Or on the front page of your...
sensationalism.
Right, or something, again, on the front of the newspaper, right? So when people say, again, these kids today, the generationals change. You're still getting fed propaganda and scare tactics and fear-mongering as long as you are teaching kids and before that. So it's nothing new. It's always the way that they keep control of the masses is by keeping you in fear. So why give somebody hope? Why do you want to share encouragement? That's not what they want. You could take the word they and I want to say who's they, but what I'm saying is the powers that be want to keep you fear-mongered, so that's what gets the highlight. When the credits are running at the end of the newscast is when they finally do a little charade and be like, oh, today we were at this park taking care of this, but it's like the last 30 minutes, last 30 seconds of your news broadcast, you know? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot that goes out. True. What we don't do is we don't get the highlight of the accoladed stuff, right? You want to keep us in chaos, so that's part of what goes on. So it doesn't matter if it was when your kids were there, the heroes, the entertainers, the people that do it. It doesn't matter which generation you live in, they're always the one that get the spotlight, right? And then what do-gooders don't, because when you're a do-gooder and you're a thinker, then you start being attacked, right? And you can go back, talk a little bit about biblical stuff as far back as Jesus and him trying to bring up what the overseers were doing, and they went after him, persecuted him, right? So you don't really get, when you are doing the light and you are being the servant, you don't get as much. And the last thing on that part about saying that, the Jesus part, is that anybody can be used. Mm-hmm. I'm probably the last person they thought they were going to give a Hero of the Year award to. So anybody that's listening, again, literally the police officer shook my hand on the way out and was like, look at your hero and you're not in custody, as a joke on the way out. Even the city council member was like, Kevin, you've changed your life around so much, So again, who you can use and where you're at in your circumstances, things that who you might think you are. And I think maybe that's some of what your book's about, right? We're going to talk about. Mm-hmm. And again, utilizing what your treasures are. That my treasure just happens to love to do fishing, and I'm able to share that gift with people. But again, the point of that is, again, thanking you, but it's intended not to get the highlight. And that day at the city council, they had another person that got it, George, shout out to him. Right. Mm-hmm. They had Parks and Recs was getting recognition for all the great work that they did in the city of Port Hueneme over the summer.
The artists.
And the students and the artists that were there, right? So you did feel a community, and they brought in a new police officer and the police dog.
The canine.
So it felt like a community full of love. But how about when we were done, the city council member said, all right, all you guys could leave now. Right? So they had all that joy, and then they have to get into the other stuff, right? And they wanted to dismiss us versus us being there to understand
what was going on.
The agenda stuff, right? Okay, you got your photos. We got to thank you. Now get out while we take care of this other stuff, right? So again, I just kind of look at big picture. Again, I'm not trying to bypass what you're saying to your congratulations, just on how the bigger picture of what gets the highlight and the spotlight and what they do has been going along for a while.
Right. Well, my point is that I think, being a classroom teacher for so many years and now writing books, that it's important for children, though, to recognize that there are heroes everywhere, because those are the people that they look up to. Those are the role models for them. And some of them need that. Maybe there isn't a dad in the house or a mom, or they have a different kind of family setup. They need to see these kind of people. And that's the kind of thing that I want to do and try to do, is to connect my students with even sometimes a high school student who could reach out to that younger students. I would often pair my younger kids with a high school student just so that they could kind of connect with one another.
You realize, like, hey, I got Spider-Man over there, right? When you say heroes, you know how many heroes come from broken homes? Batman's mom got killed. I just watched that the other day. Spider-Man lives with his grandparents. You know,
That's
how
right,
many here? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Like, there's these heroes, but you could see, if you look at the inner working of it. I watched the part about Stan Lee that was doing Marvel Comics and stuff, and he was saying when he was putting his people together in his comics, that they all had something that was hindering them back, and they were still heroic. To just tie back into it, that again, where you come from, or if you're broken, but look how many, again, heroes in books and stuff come from that circumstance made them great.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah,
as
it
far
is.
as who the heroics are, but
Yeah,
again,
because those heroes overcame that. And that's a lesson. That's a great lesson for kids to see. And it's one of the reasons that I began writing my books, and because storytelling, I had students coming in from all over. I'll say LA. I was there for a number of years teaching. And so
what part of LA is like South Central, just to throw it in there, because LA, from Beverly, you can go from Beverly Hills kids to, what kind of environment were you teaching in?
Well, it was a feeder school, so it was original magnet. And so we had students coming in that were bussed in from East LA, from all over Los Angeles. There were kids that were on buses from 6 o'clock in the morning to get to our school, from everywhere. And that's my point, is that kids were coming in, and some kids were sleepy. Some kids didn't have time for breakfast. Some kids were tired. Some kids were working the night before.
Wow.
They weren't all coming in the same place. And I realized that it was really hard for me to start a geography lesson or start a grammar lesson when I had kids coming in and they just weren't ready for that. They were hungry, they were tired, they were maybe got into an argument with the yard supervisor on the way in, or another kid on the bus. And so I knew that if I was going to get my lesson across, first I had to reach them at that emotional level. I had to share with them something that we would all come at the same place, at least together for that moment. And so I started telling stories. I made up stories. I told them some true stories from my own life. I would read stories on the internet. I would find any kind of story that would make them laugh, that we could talk about, that we could come together as just human beings, and I could connect with them before I got into whatever my lesson was. And so I started storytelling then. I used stories with my daughter.
That's so awesome. I'm just, if you're listening on audio, I'm just like gleaming and smiling hearing you with your approach on that and where it's at. So this is going to be a great, I'm going to probably go a little longer than our 30 minutes normally, because I think we're going to have some great stuff to talk about. But go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I used it with my daughter, when she was little and she'd get sick and she couldn't sleep at night. I would tell her stories. I would make up these stories, and I would just start telling her stories until she'd fall asleep. And I remember loving being a kid around the being a kid around the dining room table.
Let me get you more in there. Hold on.
And
kind of off to the side there.
And listening to my grandparents, my aunts and my uncles, my mom and dad tell stories of their childhood. And I just remember just being enthralled hearing them tell their stories. And some of them were really funny. Sometimes there was a lesson to learn, but it taught me about myself, where I came from, my culture, all of those beautiful things that make us who we are. And so storytelling has always been very much a part of who I was as a classroom teacher. And now a lot of people don't know this about me, but I was in a really terrible car accident in 2018, and I was still teaching. At that time, I was teaching adult ed, which I've taught every grade pretty much. I started with preschool, went to do primary, middle school, high school, ended up with adult ed. Loved it all, but I was on my way to visit my daughter, who at the time was going to UC Davis, and I was in the fast lane, but I was going the speed limit, and I just lost consciousness at the wheel. So, the car crashed. Fortunately, I didn't hit anybody else. I didn't kill anybody, and it's amazing that I survived that. So that put an end to my teaching career because it took about 18 months for me to rehabilitate, recover from that. But during that time in the bed and resting and recovering, I had a lot of time to think. I was like, who am I now? If I can't go back to the classroom and teach. And I realized that I'd always been a storyteller. I listened to stories being told, and that I could still take what I'd learned from the classroom, my stories, and now I could write them in my own books and tell stories.
You know, that's part of fishing, is telling stories. It was this big. I swear to God, it was this big, the one that got away, right? There's so many stories. And that's kind of why our book is called, our first book is called Catch a Memory. Because, again, those are the stories, right? Your memories are part of your storytelling, right? And just seems fitting that, you know, our telling stories, thinking about the stories, because when I tell people you do fishing, they start telling me their fishing stories all the time. I remember I went out and I got hooked in the ear, or my sister did this, or my brother, my uncle was there and who was there. And that's kind of what it is when we talk about fishing and fellowshipping, is the stories and the memories. You create a memory, and then you're able to tell the story about that, right?
That's right.
So this is your Lupita's Treasures, your first book?
It's actually my first book.
Okay.
Children's book.
All right, let's go ahead and give people so real quick, Lola Dolores is going to be here the 21st of September as our guest speaker.
Very excited.
And so we made some flyers here. You can check that on our website, Real Guppy Outdoors, or communitykevin.com, and click on it to go to that. But she's going to be here, and we're going to do it a little bit extravaganza, is what we do with the new Real Angler Network. Nothing's basic. So we're going to come in here, and she's going to make some tortillas right after that. And then I'm going to grill some fish, and we're going to have some fish tacos. But go ahead and give us a little description of Lupita's Treasure and why you wrote it.
Okay. It's a story about a young girl who's struggling with what to bring for show and tell. And she sees all her classmates bring in these wonderful treasures. There's the dog that's just amazing. He can do everything. He can bark. He can, speak. He can roll over, play dead. She sees another student bring in this collection of Japanese fans. And she's looking around. She's going home. And she's like, I don't have anything. I have nothing of value. People are going to laugh at me. It's not good. And she's just so worried that she won't find the one perfect thing. And so it's really her journey of self-acceptance, of understanding that she has something of value, something to share. We all do. And it's really that story. And so I really feel like it's a story written for all kids, but it has a really powerful message for children. And so I love the story because, the illustrations are fabulous. I'm going to give Elizabeth Konitz from Wisconsin a shout out because she did the illustrations, and they're absolutely gorgeous. But the thing that I love about the story is it opens up the conversation for us to have with children, which is extremely important, that we all are valuable members. We all are treasures. And so all of us have something to share. And I think that those are our gifts. Those are the things that make us uniquely special. And I think that children, especially young children, don't always know this. They don't understand that they have something, a gift for others. And so when I have a chance to go out to schools to talk with kids, it's just something that I always make a point of saying with them, that there are close to approximately 8 billion people on the planet, I believe.
Billion.
Right, 8 billion. And there is not one person exactly like you. You could even have, and some of them said, well, I have a twin, but even so, they don't share 100% of your same DNA. They don't have the same thoughts. There's something different about them. So we are so uniquely special in just who we are. And I think a lot of times children don't understand or recognize this yet. Adults don't understand and recognize this yet.
Well, I think sometimes in society, I call it clipping their wings. Maybe you do have that discovery and that imagination that somebody squashes, right? Dad, Mom, I want to bake brownies. I want to be a musician. I want to do this. No, you're going to take the safe route and you're going to go do this over here for social acceptance, or we need you to go to college, or we need you to do this. This is what society views as being successful. And I call it clipping their wings like a butterfly before they even get a chance to go out and do it. That's why our thing says developing impactful leaders, because I tell people my story about chasing my dream and passion. The kid that couldn't read writes children's books, right? The bad kid in the neighborhood gets hero of the year, right? Because I was able to get past my shortcomings and do that way, right? I didn't have a dad. I have all these excuses on why I couldn't.
Sure.
But if you're fostering that and championing that at an early age, and some of it could be your cultural differences of going to work and working hard, right? And that's what we do, versus, again, actually being able to use the gifts that you're given. I think that's part of it. So when we always look at the kids, there's a kid in all of us. I didn't go back to school till I was 28 to be a filmmaker.
Sure.
So you can do it at a later age. And I think that's why your book and talking to people, the parents are going to get to hear that as well. Because again, I know it's the kids and I think they believe it, but you're told not to believe and to go and follow the rat race and get in the mix that way, versus really fostering what your passions and gifts are at an early age.
Absolutely. And there's two things that I discovered after teaching nearly 25 years in the classrooms, all ages, that there's that kind of notoriety, or you get some kind of accolade for Hero of the Year, or my book just received the reader's favorite seal, which
Really?
I'm excited about.
What's that? We got awards going all over the place out here.
Which is really
and let me ask you this. You wrote a book at I don't want to age you at all, right? But again, look where you were at. You're sitting in a bed, and look what you have now, right? So if you're still creating at your young age, right? Look at that's encouragement to somebody that might be, again, your age, that has that kid inside of them to develop, right? That you could still accomplish these great things in different parts of our lives as well.
Absolutely. I'm
sorry, but go ahead about your work.
Well, and I was going to say that we are waiting for somebody to give us the pat on the back. Children are, and that's all fine. That's important too. The coach tells you, great game today, and we feel good about that. That's important. The teacher writes a little note on our paper and says, great, essay. We receive an award for Student of the Month. Those things are all really, really important. But what happens when we don't get them? What happens when the coach doesn't tell us we played a good game and the coach chews us out? What happens when the teacher doesn't like our essay and says you're going to rewrite this? What I saw in the classroom is a lot of children are crushed. They are simply crushed. And so my idea is that, yes, those kinds of things are important, and we have to celebrate and acknowledge those things within ourselves when we get those pat on the backs. But we also have to have that positive self-talk going on. We also have to learn how to acknowledge our own gifts, which we've talked about before, Kevin. And so I work with kids, and I do a couple of things that are really simple. They're free. You don't need any equipment, and you can do them anywhere. And one of them is just, people have all these fancy names for it, but it's just focusing on our breathing, because just taking a deep breath and relaxing. Because so often I see kids, when I would call on them, and they would, you keep shifting away from the mic. Am I getting too close? We got to get closer. Oh, sorry. Okay.
I'm not trying to get close to you, but we're in the frame here, okay?
Absolutely. But, kids need to just take that breath and just relax and calm themselves. And there's all kinds of research that shows by just taking that full breath and releasing it calmly, that anxiety, the stress, whatever we're dealing with, it just calms it down. So that's one thing that's very, very simple. And I tell kids, you can do that while you're in line. You can do that on the bus. You can do that.
But what I'm hearing from you saying is that adults are crushing them still.
Well, adult society, everywhere they go, they're looking, you got to be like this. You got to look like this. You're too tall. You're too short. You don't have this new gadget. And yes, society.
Because you can be an adult, right? Right. Same at work, right? Mm-hmm. I believe in acknowledgement, right? But acknowledge everybody, right? Because again, if the smart and gifted kids are always getting the acknowledgement, the kid like me, the kid that you're talking about, I was that kid. Mm-hmm. So it hits a certain special note for me when you're talking about that, because I did fail the third grade to second grade. I did fail this. So you do start thinking your own insecurities and your accomplishments, because somebody on top said, hey, Kev, if you don't got the smarts to do this, you're going to do that.
Absolutely.
Hey, little Betty over there, if you're not pretty enough, you better do this. Mm-hmm. So again, clipping the wings, right? Is that you have people, and especially if you're instructed in saying that these are the ways to get to being successful, and we really highlight those playmakers and those gifted students, that again, we're doing there's a disservice to the ones that are struggling. Again, maybe academically isn't always the way, right? I'm not a great writer. I failed the proficiency test the 5th and 7th grade. So if an adult keeps telling me these things, then I'm going to start believing it. I'm going to be wearing it, right? So where would you shift in that? Like, you do that because you see that works, but is that the way that it's intended? That's the streamline effect within the educational system, right? It's more, again, we are going to look at your testing scores. We are going to look at this, and this is how we're going to determine whether or not where you fall
Right. Yes, it is. And it's just kind of inherent in society. You know, that's how we do things. And what I'm trying to say is that it's important. This book opens up that conversation that, you know, we do have self-worth. And where do we find that? Well, we're not getting it from our teacher. We're not getting it from the coach or from our parents or from society or even our friends. Where do we get that from?
You said it. Self.
Mm-hmm.
But again,
Self.
that right. But again, if you've been told these other things, it's hard to look at yourself in a reflection of self like that when you've already been.
But it can be taught. And
yeah. Oh yeah, that's what we do here. Yeah,
that's right.
Sounds good. That's what I'm saying. I think your book's going to be great. All I'm
Right.
saying is that the way that you're saying it and how they find it, if you're already instilling that in them at an early age, it's hard to teach that again at a certain age, right? Because you've already fractured that at 8.
Right, exactly. And that's the thing, you know, that I just noticed. And I didn't really understand it all until I was lying in that bed recovering. And that's when I really was able to kind of put some pieces together and knew that I had to write this book because I wanted to open up the door so that we could talk about these kinds of things. And it's a culturally diverse book. There's a lot of kids represented in the story. And I just wanted to open up that conversation so we could have it with children, we could have it with one another. And, you know, really my intention is to write books that are enjoyable for all kids, but to have a message that hopefully empowers children to see themselves as the gifts, the treasures that they truly are. And also, you know, something that she discovers that I think is really important is that really
leave them a little cliffhanger so they show up this Saturday. So like a movie, right? Like give a basic, right. But don't, you know what I mean? Like if you want to, you know, you got to watch this is like a teaser. You know?
Right,
Go
absolutely.
ahead. I just don't.
But I'll just leave with this, that it does have a message for everyone. And that's the thing. I'll just say that when I was writing this
Make them
book,
buy the book.
yes. I will be giving away a free copy, signed book. But when I was writing this book and I was still in the process of book production and everything, and I was at my house and I had stuff everywhere, you know, was trying to put this book together. And somebody that came into my home, he was actually the inspector or something, because my house was going for sale.
Uh-huh.
And he just kind of looked at my table. He goes, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I'm a teacher, but I'm writing a children's book." He goes, "Oh," left and comes back later and he says, "About what?" And so I said, "Well, you know, it's about show and tell." And he goes, "Do I have a story for you?" And so he starts telling me this whole story. Here's this guy, you know, in his late 30s. He's telling me a story that he remembered when he was 5 or 6 years old about his first sharing and how difficult it was for him to find the one perfect thing because he thought he was going to be judged and criticized, ridiculed by his peers. And he finally comes up with a shell. And this is, you know, he said, I grew up in the mountains, you know, a rural area. And he said, I bring this shell. And he said, and I invented this whole story that was all fabricated about how I got the shell. I dove into the water, this whole thing, you know.
You know, it's funny. Because, you know, when you walk into our learning center, you have all those shells there. And that's why they're there. So the kids can write whatever story they want about the shell that we have in here. That's part of their little archaeology is they get to go in there and say, there's one set that says, how'd this happen? And the students get to write, how do these shells get stuck together? See?
Yeah, I
looks
love
like
that.
we're in the same thing as far as like letting your mind wander and your imagination go and how cool that part is. That's why here it comes in and we say, where your imagination set you free kind of thing, you know?
Absolutely. And, you know, I can't tell you how many adults have come up to me and talk about their first sharing day or the sharing day that their child went through last week and just all the stress and all the chaos in the house trying to find the perfect thing.
Do you think with that too, right? Because we do like public speaking too, right? So if you had to do show and tell in front of the class and you're a kid that, you know, we do like the mixers, right? And they have this thing, Toastmasters, right? And people are like, Kevin, I don't know how you get up and talk like that. Where even the anxiety of getting up in front of that and doing public speaking plays into, now you have to come up with a conversation. Oh my God, there's 20 people in here. I got to talk in front of all of them. And my friends are in there and they're going to laugh at that. So there's like a whole lot of lead up to that, to put on a 9-year-old to come up with their first presentation. But go ahead. I'm just.
No, that's absolutely true. You know, that's all part of it is getting in front of your peers and, you know, sharing something that you think is special and hoping everybody else will like it because you want to be accepted.
So on the Fun with HR, they asked, what do you share with people? What do you think of my answer?
I was impressed. And it just came out like that in a split second.
So like, what do you like to share? I was like, my energy. I take it everywhere. I try to share it. It's infectious with everybody. That's my gift that God's given me.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you a little story.
Yes.
The reason that I have such a good personality and laugh, I used to be an overweight, fat welfare kid. So before you get a chance to make fun of me, I would make you laugh. So that way it was a defense mechanism that I would use. And that's the jokes. Maybe if you laughed at my jokes and thought I was funny, again, that was my acceptance. Because I would see that.
I had
so
students like that.
You would make fun of my little man boobs at a young age. I don't know if it was from my asthma pump that they took off the market, getting me fat or what, but that wasn't my defense mechanism. Was to fit in, right? I guess my acceptance, and then as I lifted weights and started doing it right. Guy. But that's why the funny guy thing is it was a defense mechanism to hopefully break down a barrier so you wouldn't start making fun of my chubs.
But the thing is that you do, that energy, is alive. It's there.
You know why though? This is why, because when you said yourself, when I started finding myself and accepting it, that's where I was able to be that way, right? So I do what I love what I do. I got over, I can't read, I'm writing children's books, I'm a filmmaker, right? It did take some time to get that confidence up too.
Absolutely.
But so when you match the defense mechanism with knowing that that's your gift and you're actually using it for the greater good, then it just comes out that way,
And I was going to say that when I first wrote my book, and it was kind of scribbled, and I had that imposter syndrome where I was just like, this isn't good enough. And I would go to the libraries and sit in the children's section and read all the books that were there and the ones that won awards, and I was like, oh geez, I don't know. And it's getting over that. It's realizing, it's telling yourself, yeah, I can do this, and this is how, like you just mentioned right now, my purpose. Why did I write this book? Why did I feel like this was important? And it's my message, and it's needs to be told by me.
Are you any part of Lupita's story? Is that you in there in any way that you see yourself in that character at all?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The idea that I think it's something that, we all struggle with during our lifetime is, do I have enough to share and give to others? Yes.
Yeah, it all goes back to self-worth, right?
Right. And to promote my book was really difficult because I thought I loved my book and I just thought it was great, and I loved the message. I loved the message more than anything, but it was like giving it to Kevin and saying, what do you think about this? And that was hard. It was a struggle.
I remember when I did my first project as a filmmaker, and we're sitting in my class, and I put it on, and we turn the lights on in front of all of our peers, right? And I'm showcasing my whale watching video, one of my first ones with Island Packers. And my teacher went through and, picked it apart. I wanted to fight him. It was like talking about my children, man. But he was giving me feedback, right? Like, my responsibility as an editor is to make sure that who I'm interviewing, I cut that out. How I'm dressed on camera, but at first when he picked it apart, of course, my defensive mechanism wanted this is a fine piece of work. What do you know about fishing and film? And I remember one of them was like a montage of just fish coming over the rail with music. And he's like, this is boring. I'm like, you're boring. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's my baby and you're critiquing it, but you made me a better filmmaker. But when you first handing out your product that you believe in and love, and then people look at it, and you're going to get both it. But I think what's important is who you get your advice from. I put that out there a lot, right? Just because me reading it, am I the wise counselor that you need to worry about it, right? If you have a peer-to-peer review or other children's book authors or somebody that's helping you fine-tune it is worth listening to. Everybody's opinion about what you have should not, that's where I think you start to break away from those insecurities, is realizing this is good work, and I don't need everybody's opinion on what my work looks like. Oh, Kev, you fish on the pier. Oh, Kev, your fishing show is not hardcore enough. Oh, Kev, you need girls in bikinis. Oh, Kev, you need to be on a boat. It's like, no, this is my vision, and look where we're at right now. So if I would have listened, okay, well, if you believe that, why don't you go start a fishing show,
to everybody,
right? Versus people's opinion on what they thought it should have been versus what's true to you as well, and that you don't lose your creative, artistic beliefs in you and yourself, trying to take everybody's opinion, because you're like, okay, if you don't take credit, because I didn't ask you for criticism. Who are you to criticize what I got to do? Again, what is your background to give me advice, without me taking it? Because if I started listening to everybody, I'd overthink it, and then that would stump me from the get-go,
Absolutely. And I know that when I first wrote this, it was a lot bigger book, and I had criticism, this is just too much, and I was just like, no, but you can't cut that line. No, don't cut that scene, and this type of thing. And then, I took it to my peers. I belonged to a children's book authors group, and I had a couple beta readers, and people were going, the illustration already says that, Dolores, you don't need this. And now I have a much better version of, what I started out with. No, that's true.
When I started filming, and I wanted to put all 100 clips in there, but it's a story that I'm telling.
Right.
And if I got 21 minutes, I want to keep the story going. When I wanted to show all the big fish, right? So that's why we started adding me talking over and doing more voiceover and education. But when I first started it, I had, these 100 clips. And even when I go to film now, I only do shorter 1 minute clips, and I don't need to film as many because I do it. So it is part of the growth because you do love it and you want to see it all. But the importance of you telling the story is what's important.
Absolutely.
Sometimes less is more because you can get that point across. Like my grant writer that writes for me, I could give her a whole art. I think this will go in the grant, and she'll put like four sentences. I'm like, you captured that all.
She takes that from,
in one. But that was me being authentic too and saying, even though I'm a writer and I'm a storyteller, I need somebody to proofread it and check it and condense it to keep the story going without just, dumping it all. But that's just, if you're getting that in your first book, that's awesome, right? Because it's always the first one. It's like buying real estate, right? When you get your first one, after that, or your boat, it's always the next ones that are getting a little easier. It's that first initial one that is
I've learned
the one.
so much. I've learned so very much.
Let's grab Scott. Is it okay if we grab Scotty? Because
I wanted to earlier.
Bring in here, Scotty, be part of this podcast because you're an author as well. What do you think, man, in your storybook writing, and things like that?
Well, what do you mean in general? Writing stories is hard, and it's difficult.
But maybe where you first start at with your vision, and then maybe condensing it all. Anything you want to add? This is yours minute.
When I write a book, I got to remember that. It's my rule. When I write a book, I kind of do what Stephen King does sometimes. He invents a couple of characters, and then he follows it to see what happens to them. Or I think of a hook or something I want to get to. So I take those characters and I lead them to that hook. So that I just follow through on that.
Was that a fishing? Did he just use a fishing?
I thought about that.
I know what show I'm on. I know what show I'm on. But I agree with her completely, because here's the thing: writing the books is the hard part. Is hard. It's not the hardest part. The hardest part is promoting the books. Yes. That is a bear, and it's no pun in. I'm sorry about that, Barry. But
just full of low.
That's the hard part, and I'm sure you agree. Getting people to pay attention to your masterpiece is really difficult.
And when I started this whole venture, I didn't even think about that.
You never did.
I'm just going to write this book. I want to do this, and then, I had some coaches that I was working with that were great writers, and they said to me, "Okay, that's only half the story. Now it's the other part." And I'm going, "What?"
Exactly.
That's the part you have to really, to believe in what you do. And every time I start to feel a little bit insecure or a little bit of that imposter syndrome.
Call me.
Yes.
I'll step you out of it. Call me. Okay, I'll pull you out.
Yeah, and I also remind myself of why I wrote this.
Yes.
Because you want to have fun, right? Because again, if you get wrapped up in all that stuff, it'll take away the joy of you just wanting to create your masterpiece, right?
That's right. And also that I really feel like I have an important message for kids. I really do, and I want them to hear that message from me. So I just think, I got to do this. Even if it's out of my comfort zone, it's something I need to do.
And that's the difference between what we do, because you write with this message, and you have a story to tell, and you have a message that's got to go. I just want to entertain people, so I don't even have that difficulty of getting the message plugged in there. That makes it a little more difficult, to what you do as opposed to what I do. So that's important, and that's rough getting that message in there, isn't it?
Well, it is.
Yeah.
It can be. You have to be careful, when you're expressing yourself and your message to others, but at the same time, you have to be true to yourself, and that's what the story is about, is Lupita has to be true to herself. And when you asked me earlier if it was based on anything, we all have those moments in life, when we are struggling with our own self-worth and value. Have I gone through them? Absolutely. I think, it's part of who we are as humans, is that we do go through those things. But I also want to say that Lupita's my daughter when she was little, so that's a picture of her.
Very nice.
That's cool.
Do you plan on doing more stories with Lupita? Or?
Yes, absolutely. The other one is finished. Hasn't been edited yet. I have to get it to the editor next. But yes,
what's
the
that
second
called?
one.
What's that? A little preview. What's it called?
Well, it's going to be Lupita and her abuelo. I always have to have a Spanish word in there.
That's grandma, right?
I love that. That's great.
Grandfather. Yeah, and her grandfather teaches her a really wonderful lesson. So.
That's important. It's funny that we're talking like this because, again, even as me being a writer and a filmmaker and looking at that and creating characters, and our teacher saying, you got to develop your character. This is your character introduction, right? An introduction to character. So even when I send our newsletter out, if you see it, that the characters reappear again, right? Here's Uncle Dave, here's Marshall, here's Kev, here's Becky. And I think, here's a guppy over here on day one. Well, here's the same guppy down the road helping at an event, right? Now he went from being a participant as a ranger, now he's a volunteer. Like you say, you got to take those characters and you got to keep reintroducing those characters.
Absolutely.
Kind of down the line. And that's what real good storytelling is that you utilize your characters and that your audience and your reader, they get familiar with those said characters. And that's what kind of helps them.
So, I was just thinking, because yours is a novel.
Right.
I love a story that I read and I don't want it to end. I've fallen for that character. There's something about that character that I just, admire or, inspires me or whatever it might be. and I just don't want the story to end. And so I can't wait to read some of your novels.
I appreciate that very much. And I think that's the thing with Lupita. I think that everyone's falling in love with Lupita, and they want to see what other adventures she has coming up.
Well, she has an adventure on the 21st of September right here at the Guppy Learning Center.
And please sign up for that, because it is limited space for that. It's a free event. We're going to have a heck of a lot of fun, so please come out and join us.
Scott, you going to be here? You think you can make that?
I'm going to try to make it. I really am. Yeah, I want to come out.
Some homemade tortillas, come on.
That's the
homemade tortillas, fish tacos.
Woo-wee.
So we are in the Guppy. We're doing the podcast here. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in, but I'm just trying to plug it so we can fill up the room, as we're filming. So you could hear us on that. This is real radio, REL. We keep it real with our real guests and our real fish tacos and our real children's book author. So there's 3 authors in here right now. I'm gonna use your real name, Dolores, and then Scotty, and then Kevin Brannon, Community Kev. So we're having too much fun in here in the studio, promoting the book, and it's fun and talking about education and all kinds of stuff. So make sure you show up and put the link.
Speaking of the book, where can we get the book? Tell everybody where they can pick it up.
Take over while I put the post up. You go ahead and you guys keep chopping it up.
Okay.
I'm gonna tag us.
Well, it is available on Amazon. It's available at Barnes & Noble. Target also has the book. I think you do have to order it from them, but they're carriers of the book.
Oh, so excellent. Okay, so pretty much anywhere you can get a book then.
And that day, on September 21st, I will have copies of the book as well.
Okay, excellent. You'll sign them for folks.
Absolutely.
And you're going to give a little talk, are you?
I am going to do, I'm going to share the story, and we're going to do a little storytelling and have some fun activities planned. I have some really cool bookmarks that I had made for the book, so I'll be giving those out. And then I'm bringing my tortilla press, and so we're just going to have a good time.
It'll be a great day. What time is that on the 21st?
We don't do anything basic around here, right?
11 o'clock on the 21st.
Yep, 11 o'clock.
Keep going. I'm still tagging.
Well, I'm going to say something about Kevin, because, we know him as Community Kev, and now it's Heroic Kev, but I don't know Kevin, I haven't known him as long as some of you have, but, I bumped into him at the gym the other day where I work out. And I have to tell you, I call him the Hulk, because Kevin doesn't do anything halfway. The energy that you hear him on the radio, you see him out and about, he has that energy. You should see him in the gym.
Really?
Oh,
they complained. They said the buff cholo is too crazy in there. Swear to God, they told me to keep it down. But you know what's a fun story? So I'm at fitness. I'm at the one in Camarillo, Anytime Fitness, and it's a real quiet gym. And I thought, dang, I better turn Kev down because of this gym. They actually made me member of the month for June, because they said other members were filling off my energy and it pushed them to do it when I was trying to control it, so I wasn't scaring no good folk over there in Camarillo. And then I come right here to this one, and somebody's like, yeah, the buff cholo's got too much energy in there, and they're like, I gotta warn you. And then I told the guy the other day, it's funny because, again, see how you look at my exterior, my muscles and my tattoos, and somebody automatically classifies me as stereotyping me as a buff cholo, which I look like I am, but not knowing that I'm really a hero on the interior, but on the exterior, I do look like the Hulk, right? And look at, so that's what the Hulk was about too, talking about the Marvel, that people looked at him like this, and he was a hero. But you see this big old guy, but he got that way because of what was happening on the inside of him. He couldn't control his own emotions and his feelings. And again, watching that Stan Lee video and watching how he made each one of his characters had these issues, and that's what they were trying to highlight, so that they could be accepted with their issues that they had, and that's what made them a hero. So just to wrap it all, from character to people judging you from the exterior, afraid of you, and who you could really be on the inside, right?
Absolutely.
Man, God, this is good preaching, as my pastor would say. So yeah, check it out. Lupita's Treasure, she will be here. We're going to do a great one. We're already come up on 40 minutes, so we're going to wrap it up here pretty soon. It'd be kind of cool to have you guys in more frequently, and as I was watching Reading Rainbow, and when he says on our show, right? So when I go national, I'll come in and be like LeVar Burton, right? Yes. If you like Catch a Memory Workbook, you're really gonna love Lupita's Treasure, and then I'll hold it up like that, and then you'll do a little cameo, and then we'll continue to.
That'd be awesome.
And we call that cross-pollinating, man. If there's so much of an abundance out here that if your scarcity mindset prevents, if I highlight Lupita's Treasure and I'm trying to sell my own workbooks versus opening the door. I mean, we literally, since we've met, we've been promoting her book. We had our team make her flyer. Absolutely. We've had her on the radio show. She's going to be me on the radio on Spence's show. He does the Spence's show on Thursday too. I'm on Friday to show and share the spotlight and this highlight of other authors and let them have the spotlight as well, man. And that's what I encourage anybody out there listening. Don't have to, there's no scarcity. Think about abundance. And the more you give, the more you get. So if we have interns to help create this, and we could give her the microphone at the radio show, we could have her on the podcast and utilize our building, that as part of our being a servant at our learning center, what we are and who we will promote. And then in turn, Lola here is helping maybe Viviana, one of our journalism students, learn to be a writer as well. So again, cross-pollinating, and again, just from a resource, I think it was Menendez, or what's his name, that sent you my information?
Oh, Medina.
Yeah,
Joseph
and we met,
Medina.
right?
Yeah.
So again, somebody referred, and we've been partying since.
And I'm going to be going out to some schools this month and next month as well, and so I'm going to share your program as well. In case you're not, in that school already, I'm going to just give them some information about you as well. So.
Do you have a website for those events that you can tell people to go to? Is there like an author website for you?
Yes, I do have an author website. It's lolacruzauthor.com.
There you go, folks.
All right, so we're going to let you go with that. Again, we're coming to 40. This is a great thing. I know we talked about, that's why I have fun. Do you have anything on your notes that you want to mention before we wrap it up? That's why I was like,
Absolutely.
Are those notes?
I have notes, but I didn't use them whatsoever.
Yeah. But I wanted people to get to know you, the book, but also why you did it. Me being a documentary filmmaker, talking the conversation, not being so scripted, is because of the fact that we could get into more you in the book and the relevancy to today's world at the same time versus the notes in the scripted part, right? So
I appreciate that and the great questions you asked.
Yeah, that way we just kind of hear what you have to say, because as we work with students and youth, again, as we talk about it, today's youth, we hear older generations continuing to, again, cut their wings, destroy them when they forgot that they were 7, 8 and wanted to go on adventure.
Absolutely.
And their parents thought their hair was long and their music sucked and their bell bottoms were funky and the hippie lettuce was no good, right? And now they're talking about today's kids, and I'm kind of against that, because I think again, we're just developing, we grow and we expand, man.
That's absolutely.
Instead of us writing this article in some long paper somebody had to read, we're doing it on digital. Scotty's got to go home, upload it. We're going to share it in our. You've been a character in my newsletter for the last month, right? So if you guys want to see her in person, come on down to the Guppy Learning Center.
Absolutely, can't wait to meet you.
21st at 11 o'clock.
That's right.
You want to finish with the inspirational word? Normally it's me, but anything inspirational you want to say?
I suppose I would say that just remember that we all are treasures and we all have gifts to share with everyone, and so don't be shy about it.
Again, biblically, what Jesus did to the one that buried his treasure, he took it. So don't bury your treasure. Don't bury your talent. Use it. Don't sit around waiting. Right. All right. That's it from the Real Anglers Yada to Me Fishing Show, Real Radio, Scotty Too Hottie, and Lola. Come check us out.
Have Barry take us out. And I'll push the magic button that stops everything.
Let's go.
The Real Angler Podcast with Community Kevin Brannon is brought to you by Daiwa. If you want innovation and quality in your fishing products, Daiwa has what you need. Costa Sunglasses. Discover life's greatest adventures with Costa. Built to look good and be tough. Promar and Ahi USA. Premium fishing products and accessories with concepts developed by passionate anglers. Channel Island Sport Fishing. Offering deep-sea fishing on quality sport fishing charter boats. And more. Mossy Oak. From hot days in the water to sweltering afternoons in the woods, we've got you covered. Outfit your obsession. The Latino Business Expo, Ventura County's largest networking event. Special thanks to Bruce at Kirby Subaru in Ventura. This has been a Rough Edge Studios production.